What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is iRate Reviews, the weekly show where I go over a comic book, its art, its story, give you my impressions, and let you know whether it's something you should go back to the shop for or not. We're going to be talking about DC's New Talent Showcase number 1. So DC's New Talent Showcase is a culmination of two different events that they were running. They had a writer's workshop and talent search that they did, and an artist's workshop and talent search. So everybody that you see in here is kind of this product of those two different things. And there's a few different artists and there's a few different writers in here that are already working on books and comics, which is really cool. So overall, they put 9 stories together that range from Catwoman to Wonder Woman to Batman to Superman to Deadman's in here, Hawk Girl. There's all kinds of different stuff, so let's just dive right in. To start off with, we're going to go with The Road to Hell, which is a portion of this book, which tells the story of John Constantine and how he lost his love of Zatanna. Well, basically, she lost her love of him, and then he went on a redemption journey to try and take back her father from hell, to try and win her back. It's a really cool kind of tale, and I really like the way that it's told, and the art, even though the Hellblazer is a notoriously dark and dirty and gritty and grim kind of reality, the way that this art is portrayed, you can see this lighter side of John Constantine, and it's really seen in the actual art style that goes along with it. I was really kind of taken aback by how much I enjoyed that portion of the story, but overall it was a really fun introduction to the book. After that, we move on to Blood and Glory, which is a Wonder Woman story, which gives her beast Amazon nature. It's just showing her kind of power, her dominance, her ability to kind of survive and take care of these situations on her own. So she's fighting this kind of Hydra-esque beast, and then there's other ones that come along. The big thing is that the Flash shows up, and you'd think it's just like, oh man, this is so close to a Justice League team-up, and she's like, no. She just bounds her way off of the Flash, goes in, and just goes full beast mode on these different animals. And it's really cool because there's just a pure sense of power that comes along with a Wonder Woman character as part of the art style. So that's one of the best parts about the book. It's really light on the overall text. There's a very mystical kind of backstory that kind of ties into it, but it's really only for about a page and a panel at the end. But it's one of those stories where you'd love to see the continuation of where those things are going, and that's what a good 7 to 9 pager should do. It should really bring you in to want to be part of the next story. The third one inside the showcase is Dead Beacons, which is a story about the Lanterns. So there's 2 adventurers, or whatever they are, that are on a dead space station from the Green Lanterns, and then there's a villain that has felt like he deserved or needed a power ring, like he had done everything right. And I feel like that's really familiar, especially when compared to the current Green Lanterns run. So instead of being bestowed with power, he has the ability to take it away, and then immediately we jump to Kyle Rayner and Carol Ferris in their White Lantern and Star Sapphire gear. And it's really interesting because there's a huge jump in tone and presentation for these things. And Barnaby Bagenda, he just does a stellar job with the art, but it's just one of those things where the voice of the story is totally different because Kyle and Carol are taking on these other space aliens, and they've just gotten their anniversary interrupted, so it's a much more personal, much more light tale, and it really kind of is mirrored in the art style because everything's much brighter around where Kyle is, including like his super move at the end of it. It's super funny, and he's got this whole inner dialogue that I just really enjoyed. And then we get to the story Weapons of War, which is about Hawk Girl, and it jumps around in time because you see something that looks to be in the future, and then it says now, and then it goes soon, and then it's back to the future, and it's really kind of an odd take. It jumps around a little bit. It makes it feel a touch inconsistent, but overall it's a really short progression piece for Hawk Girl. She's doing a job as a CSI, investigative cop, or whatever she's doing in that respect, finds a Thanagarian weapon of war and brings it back to her collection. And unfortunately, her collection plays a pretty big part in this story overall. It's a very unique art style. I'm not necessarily sure I'm a fan yet, but we can talk about that a little bit later. And then we go over to the next one, which is a Deadman story, which is super rare. Very, very few people actually write Deadman and write Deadman well. And what we see is that Boston Brand is super bored. You know, he can go to the president, he can take care of all those kind of things, he can jump into average bodies to just save him from simple stuff like getting hit by a car or a bus, but then he does the average superhero kind of thing, where he takes out all these little thugs that are doing different things, saves a few lives, and really plays out his role as being a hero. He ends up at this dead bar, which is like all full of dead patrons, and they kind of give him the cold shoulder. They don't really have a good respect for Boston Brand, but that doesn't really last too long because an unexpected visitor tells Boston Brand he has unfinished business, and that's where we leave that story off. Then there's a really interesting take on Wonder Girl, which has got a really standout art style that goes along with these things, and her and her mother's out there digging up artifacts. We see Diesel, who is a character that was in her past, and how the Wonder Girl armor came to be, and he feels resentful about those things. It's short, it's sweet. It's one of those things where I can't wait to see more of this art style in particular, but overall, that wasn't a bad story either. However, it pales a little bit in comparison to the Amazonian job, which involves Selina Kyle's Catwoman as well as Wonder Woman. And this is a situation where we also get the introduction of Zeus, and we learn a little bit of backstory. This is all out of continuity stuff, so we learn a little bit more about what happened to the gods and their powers, and they kind of sealed them away in this box, and Diana wants Selina to steal it. And there's some really cool fight scene pieces where, Selina's just trying to do anything to Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman is having none of it. It's just super funny. So we end up with the book, Selina's bounding off towards this different endeavor, which is going to be super dangerous, and she's just super excited about it. And I like that snarky kind of Selina. It's a really good throwback to that. As we get near the end of this talent showcase, we get the Man in Black, which is an alien that's kind of come to Smallville, and then it really immediately jumps into this story about Superman and the Joker. And the Joker has evidently affected Lois Lane and made her pilot this giant Joker robot, which is really interesting. And she's got the Joker toxin in, and Superman develops a new power, so to speak. He develops his own ability to use microwaves. So he actually, turkey dinners her out of the Joker toxin, ultimately to realize that the Joker is a completely different person that's back, much more harsh, I guess, and then ultimately he is in Smallville, so that's someplace that Superman's going to have to go. This is one of those stories where you kind of don't want to see it end out of this new talent showcase, and you really want to see where it goes from there. And then the final one is Good Morning Gotham, which includes Harley Quinn, and this one, as a bookend piece, it's not that bad. I found that the art style is a little bit more stretched out, a little bit more fantastical, and it's really about Harley Quinn and a gang of other people that are inside the Arkham Asylum breaking out to take part in all these rioting and different stuff that's going on. It's a very interesting kind of story, and it's meant to be a little bit more zany, a little bit more out there, a little bit more crazy, and it kind of succeeds in that. So overall, the DC New Talent Showcase is a great place for you to go find your favorite characters, as well as some of the characters you didn't know were your favorite in these short stories that are out of continuity, so that way they can kind of be a little bit more fresh and inventive and invigorating. So in Hellblazer, I really like the writing of Adam Smith, and I think it was complemented very well by the art style, but it's a little bit too soft for that particular character. It seemed a little bit out of the norm, but sometimes the out of the norm is really refreshing, so I really like that. And then we also have the writing of Emma Beebe on the Amazonian job, because it was just a really cool matchup to see Selina Kyle and Wonder Woman in this kind of situation, and then the backstory that she tied to it is very inventive, and I really like that kind of creativity that goes into things. As far as the art style goes, obviously Blood and Glory, which is art by Khary Randolph, who's doing Mosaic for Marvel, is really cool. It's a stylized version of everything, but ultimately it's got power, and I really appreciated that. And then Barnaby Bagenda's art in the Dead Beacons story is just stunner. I loved Omega Men. His art was great in that, and this is just another indication of how this person went from that New Talent Showcase into a book with Tom King and was just killing it. Overall, this is a really great read. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's for everybody, but if you're curious to see what's going to be coming as far as DC's new talent, this is definitely a book for you to go pick up. It is a little bit more expensive, but in my opinion, it's worthwhile for me. Your mileage may vary, though. So that's my review of the DC New Talent Showcase. So I want to know what you guys thought, if there was any kind of things that you picked out of these individual stories, anything that you liked a little bit more than one other thing. So let's start that conversation in the comments. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe right there to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.